Man. I feel like Sundays are not very Sundays. Sup, nutritionalist? How's it going? Sup, David Tay? Just gonna wait till a few more people, I guess, file in. Will you be cheating again? I cheated before the stream. I went to the mall. I got some coffee. Got a lot of coffee. So after I came home, I said coffee reacted with my digestive tract, and the Jeets have left the station already. Yeah, usually it doesn't. That obviously usually doesn't happen, but sometimes you just gotta take a shit. You know what I mean? Why are all these like porn bots following my fucking thing? It's annoying. I noticed I'm losing followers on my Yellow Knight. I mean, I've always been losing followers since I repurposed it from a. It used to be an Eileen Gu, like parody account, and then I think a bunch of Chinese people followed it, and then they were like, "Oh, I don't want this I don't want this content. I don't want this socialism content. I'm already in socialism. I enjoy it already." Chinese people are like, "Yeah, we know socialism is better." They don't need to be preached to. They're already the choir. How's your mind virus? It hasn't been going. Some personal issues been going on. Actually, I might have to pause streaming for a week or two. Can't really talk about it. It's kind of really personal, but yeah, not the best news, obviously, but that's life. When you're 42, when you're in your 40s, things start to happen. I don't know for you 20-something-year-olds out there watching, or you're the Gen Z watching. But when you get into your 40s, things start to happen to people. And yeah, it's not great. But so yeah, I think I might be gone this Thursday, possibly Sunday as well. We'll see. I don't know yet. I'm trying to. It's a very fluid situation. But that's kind of just a heads up. I might not be here Thursday or Sunday, depending. We'll see. But in the interim, I'll hopefully still be writing that episode, and getting that out. Subcore 6 Beavers, thank you for your prayers. No worries, guys. I mean, that's just I'm sure if you're my age or older, you've probably experienced something similar already. So it's not I don't know. Yeah, of course it's not great, but we'll see. So yeah. I don't know if you guys saw, but EJ Myung had an interesting correspondence with Israel. I think there was this account. Let me see if I can pull up the exact tweet. Oh, that's interesting. I gotta it wasn't kind of like giving me his Twitter, even though I'm following him on what is this? Is this my regular? Yeah, this is my regular. So let's see if I can find it. This was April 10th. So on April 9th, I'll show it right now. Oh wait, is this the right one? Let's see. All right. I don't know if you guys can see this. All right, so this was April 9th. So what is that? Friday, Thursday. I guess this Palestinian, I kind of considered this account to be a slop account. It posts kind of like, it's kind of engagement baity. I'm not gonna lie. Calls himself a Muslim Palestinian, but a lot of the shit he posts is like very like rage bait and like bullshit like this. X deleted 800 of my followers. Why? It's just like fucking like, I need to make money by grifting off this shit, you know? It's just very like gross. But anyway, he does post, I guess, pro-Palestine content, obviously. And in this one, I'm not going to show the video, but basically, a couple IDF soldiers kick a kid off a roof. And EJ Myung says, I need to look whether this is true, and if so, what measures have been taken. The forced comfort women issue that we are raising is no different from the Jewish massacre or wartime killings. Right, so the Jewish massacre obviously is referring to the Holocaust. Wartime killings obviously referring to what's going on in Gaza. And, of course, we all know what the forced comfort women issue is. And then the Israel Foreign Ministry, Israel MFA, remarks by President of Korea, Lee Jae-myung, including the trivialization of the massacre of Jews on the eve of the Holocaust Remembrance Day in Israel, are unacceptable and warrant strong condemnation. Blah, blah, blah. Some strange reasons chose to dig up a story, 2024, cite a fake account that falsely presented it as a current event. So their issue is that it's from 2024 and not 2026. So their issue is only the temporal nature of the post, rather than actually addressing their psychotic fucking bullshit nature. This account is notorious for spreading anti-Israel blah blah blah, which is true. I would say that it's a slop account, but in this case, it was showing an actual fucking video, so you have no leg to stand on. Event discussed occurred during an operation against terrorists. Oh, against terrorists. At a time when Israeli soldiers were facing direct and immediate threats to their lives, the event was thoroughly investigated and addressed 2 years ago. Well, 2 years ago, there was a lot of other fucking events that were quote-unquote addressed, like 40 beheaded babies or fucking J-dams that apparently were Hamas rockets that killed a bunch of people at a hospital, and we all know that was bullshit. So this is all fucking bullshit. Yeah, we have not heard a single word from the president about terrorists who are at the center of this event. Well, maybe because he wasn't president back then. He just became president last year after Yoon Suk-yeol was fucking impeached. And so, yeah, that was at the end of 2023. So why would he condemn people that, you know, clearly by now everyone knows that they're not the bad guys? Dumb fucks. Nor have we heard from the president regarding the recent Iranian and Hezbollah terror attacks. Yeah, you're retarded, Mr. President. And so I wrote, you are Judeo-Nazi scum. Never speak of Korea again. Fucking terrorist cockroach pieces of shit. So he actually claps back himself. Which is surprising, right? Because, like, in all the South Korean, you know, kind of dealings with the West and America and all this other stuff, they usually toe the line, right? They usually are like, well, you know, just keep your mouth shut and, you know, let the Samsung dynasty do what the Samsung dynasty does. and call it a day, right? That's been most Korean politicians, right? Since forever. You had what, Kim Dae-jung maybe as a little bit of a difference in the 1990s or whatever. There was a lot of bunch of other corruption stuff with those guys too. The left leaning presidents. Um, so, you know, this is kind of like unprecedented almost, of like this clapping back. It says, in all circumstances, international humanitarian law must be upheld. Human dignity must be safeguarded as an uncompromising paramount value. This video depicts a real incident that occurred in September 2024. So it wasn't like a fake incident, which is what, Israel was trying to imply with this. It's a fake account, but it doesn't fucking matter who they were trying to launch an ad hominem against the account, which I do agree with, but related to the actual substance of the video, it has no fucking bearing. So apparently, which the U.S. White House described as deeply disturbing. So the White House themselves have already commented on this same thing, which is he's saying. John Kirby called it a despicable and unacceptable act. Reportedly, investigations took measures. A small relief, if any, is that it involved a corpse rather than a living person. Okay, so I guess like the body was already dead. So that's the I guess saving grace for the IDF. They only pushed over a dead corpse rather than a live body. So at least it wasn't a, he didn't kill a kid by, they already killed the kid. So good on the IDF for pre-killing him before they threw him off a building, right? But even a corpse deserves better treatment. This constitutes violation of international law. Countless tragedies of past history have taught us that the preciousness of human rights above all supreme and finest value. We must not repeat the painful lessons left by those wounds as recurring horrific tragedies. Only then can all of us humanity move towards a future of coexistence, reconciliation, cooperation. For whatever reason, whatever it may be, human rights are the last bastion and value that cannot be exchanged for anything. So there's more back and forth against this as well. There's even more, right? So this was on the 9th. This is just on the 9th. Let's see. This is just a different thing, but this is more. It's disappointing. he's like doubling, he's like tripling down. They're like, usually when Korean, I guess, presidents step out of line in the West, they kind of like issue a mea culpa. Like this motherfucker is like, fuck you, fuck you. It's disappointing that you don't even once reflect on the criticism from people around the world who are suffering and struggling due to your relentless anti-human rights and anti-international law actions. When I am in pain, others feel that pain just as deeply. It's only natural to feel sorry if someone else is suffering because of my needs. It makes me feel deeply uncomfortable to watch this immense pain and national hardship suddenly befalling our innocent citizens out of the blue like a bolt from the blue. For the sake of human rights and the national interests of the Republic of Korea, I must work harder to find things I can do. Israel, quote-unquote, cannot tolerate President Lee's remark that wartime killings equal Jewish massacre. So he's like, fuck you. You're a piece of shit, basically. And then he retweets this guy. Debating verification in front of corpse confirmed by Israel itself. So there's like they're now this is who is this guy? I guess this is a I'm not sure. Is he left wing or it's probably left wing if he's being retweeted. Yeah, I don't know who this is, but he seems to have written a lot about fuck you. Which is good. We need some more fuck you to Zionism. Let's see. I don't think that might be a subtweet about it. Man, like he's retweeting all this stuff. We regret that the Israeli Foreign Ministry misunderstood the intent. Oh God, this is kind of a this is a fucking a little bit of a backpedal here. Unspeakable suffering endured by Israel due to the Holocaust. Fuck that. Anyway, so I find this interesting because you guys might also know that in the past week, the KMT opposition leader, because the DPP is in power right now, so the KMT is the opposition party. Their leader, who was I forgot her name, but she kind of looked like probably 50s, 60s-year-old woman. Anyway, she goes over and she actually meets with Xi Jinping. She says a bunch of speeches about like how we don't want to be the next Ukraine. And, you know, this is kind of like something I predicted. It was kind of like, you know, if you just like look at Taiwanese dudes, you're just kind of like, yeah, we they're not dying for Taiwan. Let's be fucking real. I mean, like, it was like the most obvious like capitulation, like, ever. Because like everyone knows that like if China really wanted to, they could fucking end Taiwan in like seconds, and there's nothing America could do about it. Like with Ukraine, you've got a whole fucking battlefield, right? And you know, and America and its proxies and its European proxies can just keep feeding the Ukrainian fucking beast all the weapons it can to keep it going. But like in Taiwan's, you know, obviously very close to China, and very far from America, right? Despite even, you know, with all the fucking bases, military bases it all has, it's still logistically going to be in a pickle because it's right across the pond from China, and well, America would have to coordinate a defense that would be very precarious, especially considering that, you know, it's not like South Korean Japanese men want to die for Taiwan either, right? You know, you might have retarded amboys. You know, the flip cheats might be might be your ticket, your meal ticket, right? Maybe they might be the Ukraine that you, but the only problem is China doesn't give a shit about the Philippines, right? They really don't care one way or another. I know that the Filipinos think that China is trying to steal their, you know, fishing routes, and you know they're very you know, they're like, oh, China's coming for our shit. But the fact of the matter is, you know, China's economy, you know, obviously it's not that dependent on fish or whatever. So it's not like China, yeah, it has no real interest, because the Philippines as well, they're not, you know, they're not Taiwan. They're not they're not that unsinkable aircraft carrier. So in China's estimation, they're just kind of like, look, we don't give a fuck. Just like stop being a bunch of bitches. But as for the East Asian countries, maybe I'm being a little East Asian elitist. But, you know, they kind of, due to not just being East Asian, obviously, not just being white or whatever, but East Asia is more developed, right, than Southeast Asia, right? Like not even China, right? Like you have Taiwan, South Korea, etc., etc. Even North Korea, I heard, has better infrastructure and technology than some of these Southeast Asian countries. Even like like the Philippines, right? So it's kind of like they because they're more industrial developed, obviously they're more educated per capita, right? Like I'm not saying that Southeast Asians are naturally stupider or whatever, blah blah blah, whatever. It's just the matter of the fact. The fact of the matter is that more developed places have better education, and that's something Marx talks about too. Like proletariat is where the revolution is going to take hold or develop because they have the most information about capitalism, right? They're closer to the cities, they can see how it develops, they can develop a strategy, etc., etc. So in these countries, right, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, they have access obviously to the internet. They're not stupid. They see what's going on. They're observing what's going on. I feel like most Americans or Westoids or whiteoids see Asia as this very static place, and like as if their conceptions of China are also Southeast Asia's or ASEAN's conception of China, when in the past 7 years, 8 years, like Southeast Asia, particularly their leadership, right? Because they're the ones watching a lot of this geopolitical stuff, I'm sure. But they're kind of like, you know what? I don't know about this Western thing anymore, And I think we're seeing that in South Korea. We're seeing that in Taiwan, obviously. I feel like, I mean, don't quote me on this, but if Taiwan and the DPRK were to, or South Korea were to reunify with both the DPRK and China within the next 20 years, I wouldn't be surprised. And the South Korean one would probably just look like, a delayed version of China and Taiwan's thing, right? Because like I feel like the China Taiwan thing is much more easily integratable because like they already do a lot of business together, and there's already a lot of like cross pollination of people. With South Korea and North Korea, obviously it's going to be a little bit more of a controlled reunification. I think there's probably going to be at least like a 25 to 50 year period where it's going to be two countries, one system type thing. Who knows? Maybe under communism things will develop a lot faster. Maybe that'll be like a 10, 15, 20 year thing. I don't know, but there will be some sort of transition period. They can't be without. I don't think. I don't think it'll be logistically good without some sort of period. And it might. I think the reason these things could happen where people think it's crazy or like out of the ordinary or out of the picture is just because East Asians are just not retarded. Like I said, we don't win fall for it again awards. Like we've had our own ancient system of dialectical reasoning and logical reasoning for thousands of years, like Taoism, Confucianism, things that helped us understand, why there is both positive and negative things in the world and how they relate to reality. And I think, obviously watching the Ukraine situation and now obviously watching the Israel situation, and with Myung's kind of like reaction to that, and obviously the Taiwanese KMT leaders having the reaction to Ukraine and literally going over to Taiwan herself. She's actually really tall, right? I think she's like 5'10" or something, 6 feet or something. She's pretty tall, right? And this is 2026, 2028, I think, is the next election year. So that'll be an interesting one to look at to see if the people also agree with, calming things down and being like, you know what? We just need to get along. Who cares? It's not like, it's not like Taiwanese people look across to like Shanghai today and be like, yeah, that's a totally fucking, authoritarian system, right? Like that's terrible, whatever. We could never. At this point, the average Taiwanese person can see that it's all about just like stupid fucking retarded whiteoid nonsense of like wanting to, just cape for the whites, right? That's what it is. That's what these DPP people are doing. That's the only claim to power is like this narrative, this 2019 narrative. It all started with the fucking Hong Kong protests in 2019. This 7 fucking years of this nonsense bullshit from the fucking separatists. And I think by now Taiwanese people are like, yeah, that was a bunch of bullshit. Obviously there are still retarded boomer Taiwanese people, just like there are retarded South Korean boomers. I think the boomers of both Taiwan and South Korea are one of the most retarded boomers in the world. A lot of people are like, oh, well, America's so brainwashed. Like, no, they have nothing compared to Taiwanese and South Korean boomers. They are the most brainwashed people ever. So we'll see what happens with the 2028 elections. I don't know if the Taiwanese have like this midterms or not. I don't even fucking know. I don't really pay attention to Taiwan that much. Contrary to popular belief, I don't think it's really that important to know that much about Taiwan, since it looks like it's going to be a self-correcting situation on its own without anyone knowing the very specifics of the 228 incident and any other garbage like that. So, yeah, whatever. All right, let's see some of the comments. You think they're going to unalive him? If Israel unalived South Korea, if Israel unalived Lee Jae-myung, North Korea could not ask for a better propaganda salvo. They would run that shit to the high heavens. They would parade that shit. They would be like, you guys are a fucking joke. And they would be right. So, obviously I don't hope that happens. I don't wish death upon anyone, but that would be a grave mistake on Israel's part. And I think they've done a lot of retarded stuff in the past few years, but I feel like even that would be a little bit a bridge too far of retardation. I'm surprised they didn't say everything was AI. Well, I think it was just because they knew that it was a real video and it was already confirmed, so they can't really lie about that. Let's hope he doesn't get Park Chung-hee. Lee probably really salty because of that. Well, that's a big thing too. Like, right? Because like, in the past 20 years, right? Ever since Obama's pivot to Asia or whatever it is, America made a big deal about that, right? America was like, they were like, this is for your own safety. Now we can, North Korea could fucking launch missiles at you at any time, and this is how you fucking defend it, right? The whole idea of America just being in Korea in the first place, right, for the past 35 years, it's ridiculous because since the 1990s, North Korea has not had the military capability on its own to take South Korea. So there's no reason for the American military to even be there. Like, the South Korean military could take the North Korean military if they wanted to in a straight up 1v1, right? Without, well, obviously without nukes, but the nukes were never meant for offensive purposes. They're obviously for deterrence. So it's kind of like the American military or the American government this entire time has been kind of gaslighting the Korean people, right? Because they were like, you need this stuff. You need this stuff. When really the American government really just put that there to spy on China, right? And at the same time, they were like, China's going to get you. China's polluting your air. China's blah, blah, blah. Like, even though China was trading more and more with South Korea, or South Korean companies were trading more and more with South Korea, American government was like, you better watch out, blah, 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 spreading all this fucking bullshit nonsense, which is why South Koreans hate Chinese people, because they're retarded and they're brainwashed. But then, so when you take away all those fucking missiles, right, and you load them up onto Israel, and not only that, doesn't even fucking work, and fucking Iran's toasting the fuck out of Israel's. Not only that, they're just destroying American aircraft so easily. It's like a double thing. It's like, A, these Americans leave us in the dust. If what they said was true, that we need THAAD to defend ourselves, well, now we can't defend ourselves, and and B, that defense is useless. It doesn't even fucking work. So how can we rely on, like, we were relying on America this entire time? And so I think what's going on is, like, I think the Chebbles, right, they understand that, that that there's a lot of benefits they receive from, cooperating with American government and economy and all that stuff. But I think, like, the longer term kind of planners are like thinking, you know what, maybe we need to hedge our bets a little bit here. Maybe we shouldn't go all in with America, right? And funnily enough, that's always been Korea's strategy, kind of like figuring out, how to play the other powers against each other, to kind of maximize your own sort of, like, and that's like, before the occupation period, that's how Korea stayed independent for so long, because they were playing, Russia off America, off Japan, they were playing them off each other, in the hopes that their competition would let them retain some sort of autonomy. Of course, that sort of strategy failed once Japan defeated Russia, but that's what Kim Il Sung also did, balancing Beijing and Moscow, due to the Sino-Soviet split, and that's kind of like, I feel like that's what Lee Jae-myung is kind of doing right now, and they kind of did that too after the Cold War. After the Cold War ended, they started trading more with Russia, because Russia is right there, right? It's right at its border. They started buying Russian weapons, I think, too, which the United States didn't quite like too much. But yeah, I think it's just Korea's starting to look out for its best interests. I know there are still retarded Unigen conservatives. I think they're basically CIA plants at this point. I don't think there are any of them are organic, and it's kind of like a dying thing. I don't know why they still exist. Like, there's no way Yoon is ever becoming president again. But there's retards everywhere, so I don't know. Chen Li Wen. Oh, is that what her name is? Cheng Li Wen. Hong Kong democracy dudes looked goofy as fuck. Yeah, they're the ones that caused all this fucking retarded nonsense in the past 7 years. Taiwan gets moldy U.S. weapons. That's the other thing too. Like South Korea, they lose their THAAD, and Taiwan, when they get weapons from America, they come in like these like shoddy ass box. Everyone fucking knows. Like, you guys like ever watch Rounders, where the main character, what's his face, Matt Damon's character, Mike McDermott, um, and he is on the hook for like 10 grand or something, or 15 grand or something like that. And he goes to this guy, Kanish, John Turturro, and he's like, I need whatever money you can give me. I have nothing. But he has like 1 day to pay it off. And so Kanish tells him, what, like, if I give you like 500, 1,000, I'm wasting it. Like, you're just going to die anyway. So why would I give you any money right now? Because I can't give you 15 grand. And even if I only get like 1 or 2 together to give to you, it's a waste. You're just going to die. You can't make up the rest. And so it's like kind of the same fucking thing, where it's just kind of like Taiwan's getting these $1,000, $2,000 fucking weapons, when China has like $100 million weapons, and it's just kind of like, what the fuck am I gonna do with this? So like these leaders, unlike fucking the Philippines, where you have the Marcos family, the fucking corrupt ass Marcos family, and corrupt ass people in the seedling countries. The ones in Taiwan and South Korea, they know, they can read the tea leaves, right? They're kind of like, well, that ain't gonna do shit if like what is that gonna fucking do? Make Taiwan great again by becoming China again. Filipinos, China made our boats wet. This is a war crime. Yeah. Don't be sorry, we are. CGs are just salty. Dude, even Vietnam is not joke. If so, Korean would be very strong. Even Vietnam B? If B? To undo anti-communism in South Korea would probably take longer. The idea of reunification brings tears to my eyes. Smash that like button. Let's get... Thank you. Vietnam's document about the U.S. is not to be trusted. Vietnam needs to... Wait, what did Vietnam say about the U.S.? Document about the U.S.? Plus, this chick is pretty tough from what I understand. Jingri, the Chinese Chinapa. Who's Jingri? Sup, NOLP, checking in. There's this conspiracy that the KMT party was going to win and take majority government position from DPP in 2019-2020. So U.S. and DPP and pro-Dem Honkies started the Hong Kong riot to scare voters. Makes sense. And look, North Korea didn't invade. Yeah, that's the other thing too, right? That was the whole idea. That was the whole like, oh, we're here, Big Brother's here to make sure that North Korea doesn't come in, whatever. And North Korea's like, North Korea, who was it? Somebody here, I think somebody here was saying that they caught wind of Yoon Suk Yeol's plan, and in advance destroyed their own roads to make invasion either way a very difficult affair. Which is also kind of funny because I don't know if you guys know, but if you know anything about Korean War history, the American military had given the South Korea a bunch of landmines, and in preparation for a potential invasion, right? And curiously enough, despite a year of antagonizing the North with constant guerrilla strikes on the 38th in different positions in 1949. Despite all that, they failed to somehow lay mines on the road going south. So the North just fucking flew down southward with no impediments, all the way down to yeah, just destroy everything. So it's funny how South Korea didn't lay landmines all of a sudden. It's almost like something was taking root. Because like that would be something to deter an invasion, right? You'd want to put landmines in if you were fearing getting invaded at all. And they didn't do that. It's almost like they wanted that to happen. Interesting. If South Korea try to take North Korea, they make it seem like China will step up and defend little bro. I mean, they will. They have a literal defense pact. China's only defense pact is with North Korea, signed in around 1960, I believe. So yeah, that's actually within their treaty. If North Korea is attacked by South Korea, that's treated as an attack on China. So they would come to step up, defend, because China understands that North Korea is the buffer. Western retard MSM always wants its people to think non-Western countries are going to use nukes offensively. It's projection. Yeah, and guess what people are the only people to have been nuked / threatened with nukes in the past since nukes were created, right? 81 years. It's been China in 1958 during the Strait Crisis. It's been China again for Korean War, as well as Koreans, obviously. It's been Vietnam for the first Indochina War in 1954. It was the Vietnam War again, I think 1968 or 1969. You know, we've been threatened with nukes so many times. It's like, wow. Who do you think the white man fears the most? Oh, man. Only Israel gets that premium weapon packaging. East Asian vassals get the moldy package and a fuck you. Exactly. See? That's the other thing. Like, let's say you're drinking the Kool-Aid, even if you're not like a communist, right? If you're drinking the American Kool-Aid as a Korean, you're just seeing that this is like a pointless war against Iran. It's like, what are we doing there? What are you guys doing there in the first place? And second of all, it was a poorly planned operation. It's failing in every fucking regard possible. This was kind of like I think we're starting to see the second order effects of the Iranian invasion. I think we first started to see, in the past 7, especially for me, right? Like, because, I only woke up recently myself. But I think each sort of thing is having second order effects on the perception of America, right? Because part of war and politics is propaganda, right? For morale, for everything, like it's possible that Netanyahu is dead, right? And you don't want that to actually, even if there's like 99% truth to that, you want to keep that 1% as long as possible so that like there isn't mass chaos, right? Does anyone know the latest about that? If there was any sort of like definitive proof that he was alive recently? I don't know. I don't even fucking know what's going on with that. But like, During World War One, for example, as well, the reason it's called the Spanish flu is that all the other places were at war in 1918, and they don't want news of a fucking virus of a pandemic going on while they're fighting this war. So they're like, "Oh, we're doing fine in the war. Nothing bad is going. We just need to push through this last bit to get the Germans on their heels, and the war will be over." And I guess to their credit, the war was over soon after that, but Spain got blamed for the Spanish flu. What was it called again? I think it was called like the bird flu in reality. Anyway, but yeah, if you're just like thinking about it from a regular Korean citizen's perspective, even if you drank all that Kool-Aid, like, yeah, America's coming to save us, America's our savior, blah blah blah, and then even Japan, I feel like, I'm getting mixed, ever since Japanese Twitter's all over my fucking feed now, whatever. I'm getting mixed sort of like views, actually. There are some people who are like, why are we fighting China? Why are we against China right now? Like, this seems stupid, Obviously there are some cockroaches. I'm not gonna fucking lie. There are some fucking Jap cockroaches that need to be crushed. Not denying that, obviously, but I am kind of seeing some interesting sorts of sentiment from some Japanese people, and I feel like, yeah, the East Asians. What was it? Holocaust who? Well, I guess Japan has a different reason for saying Holocaust too. But both Chinese and Japanese people and Korean people, we all say Holocaust too, not because we deny that Holocaust actually happened. We're like, okay, fine, Holocaust. I guess y'all got shipped to concentration camps. You got worked to the bone, and then when you were too skinny or too sick to work, they just threw you into the gas chambers and filled you up with some Zyklon B. 15 minutes later, they took you out and threw you into an incinerator, and you were burned to death, or like your body was turned to ashes, and that was it. That was the worst thing of all time, apparently. Of course, that's horrific. Not gonna lie. If I was in that situation, it'd be pretty terrible. I would not like that, obviously. I read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He is a psychoanalyst who spent time in a concentration camp, described what it was like, and yeah, it was just kind of like they didn't give you much food, but you had to put in your quotas. And so that was a balancing act, right? Because, you're obviously not given enough calories to do the work that you're supposed to be doing. So eventually you're going to get killed if you didn't, But he managed to pull through. It's an inspiring book, actually. But when Korean people, when Chinese people, when Southeast Asian people who actually know history and aren't fucking weebs or amboys think about the Holocaust, they're like, yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I think that angers a lot of whiteoids. A lot of westoids are angry about that, especially, obviously, Jewish people. And it's kind of like obviously it's not just Asian people who went through something like that. The Congo, right? Just a couple hundred years ago, just soon before the Holocaust, right? They, I think it was like 70% were killed. 70% of Congo's population was killed. Not just 33% of Jews, like, and not even the Western Jews. That was all like Eastern Jews that were killed. But 70% of an entire nation was killed by Belgium. During the Holocaust as well, gypsies, who also don't have their own countries, were also killed by 75%. There were 2 million gypsies before the Holocaust, and there were 500,000 afterwards. So they didn't even suffer the worst of the Holocaust proportionally. They didn't even suffer the worst crime in World War II. They didn't even suffer the worst crime of the West in that century. You know, there were millions of Indian people that were killed during the British Raj in the later part of it, unnecessarily through famine and destruction. And so the only reason, you know, now we're kind of like taking these things into account more is that Asia now is not like Africa or South America or, you know, the global South Middle East. They have now economic power. They have now their own intellectuals who can kind of like parse through this stuff. They have people who can kind of be like, you know what? I don't care, right? You know, like for black people, for black Americans, they kind of had to care because the civil rights movement and the NAACP was infiltrated by Zionists. So it was kind of like a tit for tat kind of thing. Like, you kind of support Israel and Zionism, and we'll support black civil rights. So for the longest time, that quid pro quo was in place since the 67 war. And so you had kind of like black Americans kind of be like, yeah, the Holocaust, that kind of sucked, and, you know, we should care about it. Even to, you know, obviously the detriment of talking about their own kind of suffering at the hands of Americans. Right? And that's something that obviously Kanye West points out. You know, I tend to kind of like agree that he's not actually a Nazi, right? He's not actually like, I'm a Nazi because I believe in this Hyperborean, you know, Heinrich Himmler type nonsense, you know, of like a tool society of like white people, you know, kind of like, you know, obviously like people who are not white can't be Nazi anti-Semitic. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like the whole argument of Nazi anti-Semitism is predicated on the idea that like Jews are in the way of white supremacy. Jews are an impediment to white supremacy. So it's obvious that Kanye is not like, I'm a Nazi in that I want whites to be dominant and Jews are in the way of that. Like, that kind of argument is like the most retarded thing I've ever heard. And again, I'm probably going to do a Kanye video at some point this year. Just haven't had a lot of fucking time to do any of that. But yeah, I take him at his word that his whole point was that black people in music can talk about killing other black people and doing all this lump and pearl shit. And they can even talk about killing Asian people, right? That's what Meet the Flockers was. But talk about Jewish people and, you know, your entire fucking career gets destroyed, right? And that's why it was just kind of like again, with the Holocaust, you know, when I was a kid, obviously I empathize with the Holocaust. I grew up in a very heavily Jewish area. And it's not like I don't empathize with it now. It's more that, like, by the time I was a teenager, like in high school, I was just kind of like, wait, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's bad. But why do Asians have to just get over Japan? Even though they didn't even fucking apologize, right? That's the fucking crazy part. You know, Germany 80 million euros or 80 billion euros at this point to fucking Israel. You know, they got a bunch of money from Switzerland as well. A lot of that money didn't even go to fucking Holocaust survivors. They went to the fucking Israel government, you know, to kill more people, you know, obviously. Um, and, you know, it's just fucking ridiculous. Like, Germany was the one that was divided, right? Germany was the one that was punished for its own crimes. But what happened after the end of World War II? Japan was let go scot fucking free. They didn't apologize at all. They considered the 65 like bridge loans from their Zaibatsu to the fucking Chebbles. They considered that to be paid in full. And they weren't even fucking like giving us that money. That money was like grants and loans. And you know, for the Japanese industry to recharge South Korean industry so they could profit off that too. So it wasn't even like this fucking like gracious like mea culpa thing. They only gave it with the stipulation that South Korea can no longer seek any sort of reparations from the colonization period ever again. And fucking Park Chung-hee signed that shit. That's why there was martial law declared in 1965, because the South Korean people were like, what the fuck is that? It's fucking bullshit. But of course the boomers will never fucking tell you that because they're retarded. Anyway. I posted Vietnam's document about the U.S. in Discord. What was the document? Internal document shows the Vietnamese military preparing for possible American war. Wait. Does Vietnam think that America is going to invade Vietnam? U.S. and its militaries. Let me just put it up in the... Let me put it up here so people can see. All right. A year after Vietnam elevated its relations with Washington to the highest diplomatic level, an internal document shows its military was taking steps to prepare for a possible American war of aggression, considered the United States a belligerent power, according to a report released Tuesday. More than just exposing Hanoi's duality and approach towards the U.S., document confirms a deep-seated fear of external forces fomenting an uprising against the communist leadership in a so-called color revolution, like the 2004 Orange Revolution in Ukraine or 86 Yellow Revolution in the Philippines. Other internal documents that the 88 Project of Human Rights Organization focused on human rights abuses cited its analysis point to similar concerns over U.S. motives. The consensus here across the government blah 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 blah. While noting that currently there is little risk of a war against Vietnam, due to the U.S. belligerent nature, we need to be vigilant to prevent the U.S. and its allies from creating a pretext to launch an invasion of our country. Vietnamese military analysts outline what they see as a progression of 3 American administrators, Barack Obama, Trump's first term, and into Joe Biden's presidency, with Washington increasingly pursuing military and other relationships with Asian nations to form a front against China. Interesting. Well, wait, so are we saying that we believe this or we don't believe this document? Is this like a fake document that America's making up? What are we thinking right now? This is the first time I'm seeing this. Korea would be very strong. ROK would be PLA'd. Lol. To be fair, the DPRK defense isn't too shabby. Yeah, they're positioned for defense, not offense. That's what the nukes are for. The nukes are the ultimate defense, right? That's the ultimate deterrent strategy. Be like, well, you want to fuck around? They should name the Hwasong, the next Hwasong rockets. They should call them the fuck around, find out rockets. FAFO. I have a question for you for later. In your view, what do Western whiteoid Anglo-Jeet commies not understand about Juche? Well, when you say whiteoid Anglo-Jeet commies, I'm assuming you mean people who are anti-DPRK. Or do you mean pro-DPRK? Well, I'll assume you're saying about anti-DPRK people. Those people are probably Maoists, and they're probably retarded. They don't understand that... They don't understand that China, despite being, obviously I'm pro-China. I'm very, despite being kind of like the center of global communism, obviously, since pretty much 1956, or 58, if you want to kind of like talk about the secret speech getting leaked. China has been kind of like the center of communism, right? But that doesn't mean that China is always correct or doesn't practice big power chauvinism. Even Deng and Mao, they would say that, I'm 70-30, or, Deng would say I'm 50-50. And, they've made mistakes, obviously. I think like a big thing that Maoists or retarded Maoists talk about is that like the Red Guards called Kim Il-sung like revisionist and all this other fucking bullshit, and actually killed ethnic Koreans in northern China. So yeah, DPRK obviously was not happy about that and condemned that kind of retardation. And the CPC today also condemns a lot of the retardation that happened in the GPCR. So those people, those are whiteoid retards. They don't know what they're talking about. The biggest reason Kim Il-sung went towards like the Juche route initially is because there were kind of like Soviet and Chinese elements within North Korea that he purged in 1953 to 1956. They were both trying to kind of like subvert the country's government for their own interests. And like I said before, obviously it was both Korea and Vietnam were not happy with the Sino-Soviet split for obvious reasons, right? Because like they were getting aid from both the Soviet Union and China in the wars and, in general, right? So it's just kind of like, I think Beijing was trying to pressure Korea, especially during the Cultural Revolution, to like cut their ties with the revisionists, right? The revisionist Soviet Union and all that other stuff. And they did that too with Vietnam, which Ho Chi Minh was like, the fuck are you guys talking about? Can you guys stop being fucking retards? We're actually fighting a war, an existential war. I don't know if you've seen these fucking bombing campaigns from Lyndon B. Johnson, but I don't know if you guys are retarded. Zoe and Lai, I know we're boys, but maybe you're kind of retarded right now. That was Ho Chi Minh back in the day. He probably didn't say that. He was a lot nicer guy than me. But yeah, the Juche part was just kind of like the recognition that you can't fucking depend on a sponsor. You gotta fucking be able to. In a way, Juche is like very like, it's kind of like the understanding that, look, America's sanctioning us, right? And China and the Soviet Union, obviously they're allies, but they're also fickle as well. Their interests can change based on what they need and what they want. And we need to be autonomous. We need to be able to, and in order to retain our autonomy, what's the best way of doing that? Well, we need an economy that's independent. We need a strong economy. And, we need to not depend on welfareism and all that stuff, because now we have to kick back to whatever country we're dependent on. And that increased even more during the arduous march in the 1990s, because Kim Il Sung dies in 94. The Soviet Union fell in 91. America's kind of threatening to invade in 96, I believe. Something like that. There's a huge famine, 300-year monsoon, and North Korea isn't agriculturally developed because it was more industrial developed, because they were trading for grain with the Soviet Union. Now they're gone. So there was a huge kind of like starvation famine in the 1990s. They called it the Arduous March. And that's when they built up their own agricultural. They were just kind of like, we got to do it. What else are we going to do? We got to grow our own food now. We can't, there's no more Soviet Union to trade with. And so by the 2000s, they kind of righted the ship. In that regard, the worst of it was over by the 2000s. But that was a difficult time. But I think because of their experiences, they learned how to make it work, how to be independent, and how to maintain socialism in their kind of way without, obviously, if they can trade, then that's great, equal footing, not getting trade like, handouts or anything. But like if they can trade like legitimately, then do that. But also, like be ready to fucking take care of your business, right? Like that's what Kim Il Sung was kind of like saying. In order for the DPRK to survive, it needs to be self-sufficient. It needs to be able to survive on its own. So that's kind of what was going on there. Takaishi is slowly becoming as popular as Yoon. Yeah, that's what's going on in Japan. Even the Japs, even the Japs, they kind of understand like, oh yeah, this bitch is just like selling us out. and she's also pissing off the right wingers, because like her whole thing was like not letting foreign jeets into the country. They don't like the jeets either. And so she's not being racist enough for the right wingers. So attacks on all sides against Cart Titan Hitler for not being Hitler enough. She's too Carton Titan and not enough Hitler. So the Japs are angry at that. Trump has been great for China. Yeah, I mean, even if Japs are super chauvinist, there is sharply growing anti-boomer sentiment growing in Japan that could be utilized by a smart Jap if they have any. Well, their government is kind of like, it's run by the CIA. I mean, the LDP is like created by the CIA. So I don't know how their politics are going to shape out through the electoral process. I don't think there's any possibility of change there, really. It's interesting, if you browse Chinese social media, some netizens say one Japan is stronger than all of Europe. I mean, I think that's just kind of like an insult to Europe at this point. Because, like, honestly speaking, like, what does Europe have at this point, right? All of its military capabilities are pretty much cucked to the United States. Any East Asian country is that much of a powerhouse. Japan's only apology is the yen carry trade, international banking grift. Vietnam believes they'll be caught in the middle between U.S. and China. This was also reported on Xinhua and Chinese media outlets. I believe it to be true. I mean, I think everywhere is going to be caught in the middle between U.S. and China. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, obviously Vietnam, um, being China's next door neighbor, is definitely going to be in the mix, obviously, as well as being, you know, Marxist Leninist, right? They declared themselves a Marxist Leninist unitary state. So obviously, clearly, in a capitalism versus communism conflict, they would be geared towards helping their fellow AZN bros. But yeah, I don't think America. If a war happens with China and they bring Vietnam into the mix against America, that's like GG. Like that's like once you attack, like I feel like because of the Vietnam War, like Vietnam should have like a 200-year grace period or a 100-year grace period from any sort of military action in the United States, because like the minute that happens, they lose all. Like, yes, obviously they've lost a lot of moral ground footing over the past few years, but they lose it all. They lose it all if they step one fucking foot onto Vietnamese soil. But I can understand the concern because that's what Japan did, right? They wanted to open a second flank against China's Western Front, and because they weren't doing too hot on China's Eastern Front, so they wanted to kind of encircle them, go through Vietnam, and so they invaded Vietnam back in the day. And so I can understand the concern from the Vietnamese perspective. And who knows? Maybe they've got intelligence that, I don't know. Anything's possible, of course, with the CIA. Even without the nukes. I'm surprised, actually. You know what I'm surprised about mostly? I'm surprised Vietnam didn't develop nukes. I'm wondering, does Vietnam have... Oh, it signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. See, I guess they kind of were like, yeah, we have a 100-year grace period. We don't need nukes. Peaceful nuclear energy. Vietnam has plans for civilian nuclear power projects, including the restart the Ninh Thuan nuclear power plant projects. Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. I think they would be well in their rights to kind of be like, you know what? It's time to enrich some uranium. Get that going just in case. I would have expected them to, especially after the Sino-Soviet split and their own hostilities with China. They would be like, you know what? Fuck that. We can't trust China or the United States. We need fucking nukes of our own, or the Soviet Union, which went down. Right? Soviet Union was our primary benefactor. Now they went down. We don't have their nukes to depend on. I would think that maybe Vietnam just didn't want the smoke back then. They were like, whatever, just sign this shit. Anyway. Oh, pro DPRK. You meant pro DPRK people. So I don't know. What are their arguments about Juche? What I don't even know what they say about it. So I don't know what their thing could be about. Even if Japs are super chauvinist, there is sharply growing anti-boomer sentiment growing in Japan. Oh, right. You said that. I said that. I read that already. You mentioned to a Westoid, especially a tiny hat, about the genocide going on in Asia during World War II. All of a sudden it becomes a competition with these Westoids that the Jews suffered more. They didn't. End of story. To be honest, I'm pro-China to spite dumbass Koreans who are racist against Chinese for really no good reason, especially if they glaze the Japs. Yeah. Those Koreans are fucking Chinopaus pieces of shit retards. They're the Unigen retards. They're not even that numerous. They're just fucking like the loudest. That's why they seem like there's more of them. Like the retards are always the loudest. That's why everyone and the retards are always on social media. Um like the loudest retards are always like on social media, and they make it seem like a fringe 0.101% thing is like 5 to 10% just by being fucking annoying as fuck. Um, she's not even Aaron. She's not Aaron Yeager. Yeah, that's why she's Cart Titan. She's peak. Europe was dependent on cheap Russian gas. Now they're struggling to heat their homes. So many simulated war games from Washington, D.C., and those retards from D.C. don't realize the only way to win is to not play, but they still do. America underestimating Vietnam would be a huge mistake. Plus, Vietnam is actually unified. Korea isn't. Are there any sea countries with nukes? I don't believe so. I think the only Asian country with nukes are China and North Korea. People speculate that Japan has its own Israel-type secret nukes. It's definitely possible. I mean, some Chinese people have speculated that Fukushima is a cover for enriching, weapons-grade uranium, and that's why it was so poorly designed, and that's why it failed. It was near all these kind of dangerous sorts of things. And that's kind of, I guess, why Chinese people or, Chinese conspiracy theorists think that, like, it was just a front for nuclear testing. I think it's possible that they have nukes, just probably not tested, so they don't know if they actually work or not. Though I would assume that they have enough data to be able to be like, yeah, it works. We just can't test it, because then they would know that we're up to something, up to no good, up to violating those San Francisco treaties, right? Because the thing about Israel is it can be coy because it never signed a treaty that said, we're never going to build these things. But Japan, obviously, in San Francisco in 1953 or whatever, they signed a few things that made it very illegal for them to ever have those kinds of things. So if they were ever caught, that would be a very big thing. So many similar war games, blah, blah, blah. That's another consideration for Vietnam with regards to nukes. ASEAN. What's another consideration? It's funny, though, those white anti-imperialists tried to dance around the DPRK's right to have nukes. Yeah, and those whiteoids are looking more and more retarded by the second. Because, like, they can see through this Iranian thing, they're like, first of all, yeah, obviously we wouldn't have invaded at all if Iran had nukes and just fucking wasted Tel Aviv as a response. But second of all, this is not a surprise to people who've followed the United States foreign policy, right? They've reneged on every single fucking treaty, with Vietnam, with Korea, with Native Americans, every single, like, hundreds of treaties with Native Americans have been signed. I think, like, there was some crazy stat that every single one of them was violated. And so that's the thing. Like, Asians don't win Fall For It Again awards, right? It's just kind of like, Okay, well, you did that time when we promised that, and so yeah. South Korea is practically run by eunuchs. No, I mean South Korea is pretty much run by Samsung in my opinion, or the Chebels, the oligarchy. They kind of control the newspapers. They control the media. Um, they kind of control what goes on. I think like pretty much everyone in government is pretty much a puppet. You know, I guess Park Chung Hee was less of a puppet, but he was more fascist, so I don't know if that's really an upgrade. And he was on the side of the Chebels anyway, so he did keep them in line in the 1960s. Less so in the 1970s. Once the Chebels started gaining more and more influence and power themselves, it became a little bit hard to corral them. But he did kind of like control them for the most part. But then once he died, it was free reign, right? It was free reign for the Chebels to just consolidate all their power and control over the media. So that's what's going on there. Pro DPRK Western people tend to say the solution to every problem is just to do your own juche. I mean, no, that's not the solution to it. I mean, like, juche is good for like a personal, as like a personal sort of thing, like like a sort of like a Nietzsche sort of type of thing where it's just kind of like, you know, almost kind of like in a Jordan Peterson sort of like clean your own room, you know, before you fucking start complaining about shit, just like clean your own room, do your own fucking, take care of your own house, right? That was the whole kind of idea of like, you know, do everything you can to improve your own situation. Before you even start complaining, have you done everything you can to better your own self, to kind of like um better your own situation. Stop fucking being a bitch, stop complaining. And I subscribe to that kind of mentality as well. I hate when people just complain. A lot of leftists, right? That's why a lot of leftists aren't actually communists. They're just complainers. They just, unfortunately, a lot of what libertarians and pro-capitalists say about leftists, like whiteoid leftists, is true. They're just lazy, incompetent, and just think that by dint of existing in a modern society, they deserve to just coast, because so many other of the bourgeois coast, which is not what communism is, and not why I'm a communist, obviously, because I myself can coast if I wanted to, because I did the bourgeois things, or I was my own personal, I guess, Robin Hood, or I got some white-oid boomers to play a game with me and give me millions of dollars, And so, yeah, it just seems like some stupid fucking anarchist jibber jabber of like, yeah, communism is about the commune, and we need to all work together and be part of the commune. Socialism will come when we are all communes and shit. And it's not what Juche is about. Juche is about a very real kind of like geopolitical reality that Korea was facing, and it has to do with the material conditions. That's the biggest thing, Starside. That has to do with the material conditions. Juche is socialism with Korean characteristics, like the conditions that were specific to Korea at the time, being a small country in the middle of dealing with, Japan, China, Russia, its entire fucking history, even before the World War II and the occupation period. It was kind of like dealing with a lot of that shit for a long time. So these were, socialism with Korean characteristics. You can't just fucking apply them to your fucking commune and be like, this is Juche. That's fucking gay and retarded. So that's what I would say. I don't know. Is that harsh? Asian American feminists are still pushing the 4B thing. Asian American feminists are fucking retarded. God, I'm just so fucking over them. Like there's not a single Asian American feminist who is an intelligent person. Most pro DPRK Westerners try to mix their liberal views with Korean culture, which is stupid. That is the most retarded bullshit I've ever heard in my life. Because like when they're mixing their liberal views with Korean culture, they're mixing it probably with fucking South Korean culture, which is Westoid jibber jabber. Or they're associating with like, the fucking, old school Korean culture, which is always sort of like fetishized and white-eyed, the stuff that they're like, oh, look how much of a fucking anthropologist I am. Look how much I know about your own culture, your own ancient history that you don't know. Shut the fuck up, white-eyed. Surprise Pikachu face is glorious. Samsungites. Samsungtopia. Launch the Samsung option. Kim Il-sung, Kim E-sung, Kim Samsung. I was like, oh no. Maybe the sung nomenclature system isn't that great. Cause the three sung is Samsung. Natural selection for the coasters. Yeah, fuck the coasters. I'm reminded of that picture with the soy fat PSL leftist when you did that nasal voiced impression. I don't know. There's so many pictures of soy fat PSL leftists. I don't even know. Great answer. What's a great answer? Exactly. Exactement. What else is going on? I don't know. I mean, I've always said kind of like Holocaust too. Even before October 7th, even before I was a communist, I've always been like, Holocaust who? I've been, obviously I've known about Unit 731 pretty early for a Korean. Like, obviously now it's more in the global consciousness. But even just like 2014, for example, I was working with, there's this Korean actor. His name's Tim Kang. And you guys might not know him if you're younger, but he was on a show called The Mentalist. He was a series regular for a long time. He's like 10 years older than me, so he's probably like 52 at this point. Anyway, 10 years ago, so I moved to LA in 2012. And I had a friend, I guess, that I met in New York who was friends with him, same age, and was friends with him in New York. So she connected me to him, and he was like, "Hey, I'm actually producing this short film about this Unit 731 thing. It's like going to be this horror film. Do you want to kind of like help out, whatever, see on set?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And that's when I first learned about Unit 731, when I was 31 years old, or 30 years old. This was 2014, and it might seem ubiquitous now, but Korean people didn't really know about this. It was actually, and I said this before on stream, but the first time my dad even heard about Unit 731, and he's a doctor, mind you, right? So he's a medical doctor. The first time he heard about it was in America through a Chinese doctor who was, I guess his colleague, and kind of told him about it. That's the first time he learned about this thing. And I still think to this day, South Korea doesn't really talk about any of Japan's war crimes except for the comfort women stuff, and that is only because those comfort women themselves have taken it upon themselves to be like, we are not dying until we get our proper due. And so, yeah, because the Unit 731 stuff that happened in Harbin, right? So it stands to reason. We're like, well, it didn't happen here, so we don't know if Koreans were there. We're just going on Chinese and Russian hearsay, you know. Only the Russians and the Chinese are kind of saying, you know, like, it was just all this fucking bullshit, this Jap Chinapot bullshit that, you know, Park Chung Hee was probably a part of as well. Um, and nobody even knew about Nanching. I read about that a few years ago. I mean, I kind of knew about it before I read about it, obviously. Um, and so, yeah, we're all kind of like learning about it. But even before I learned about Unit 731, I was pretty aware that the Japs were not Jappy. I mean, obviously, I grew up Asian, right? It's not like I didn't have Japanese video games. It's like I didn't have Nintendo and PlayStation growing up and played all those RPGs, right? I wasn't actually into anime until college, and really not even like that much. Just like into the big ones, you know, like Naruto or Bleach or Death Note. And I watched Attack on Titan for research purposes. Um, this is another thing I'm gonna be working on. Got so much fucking content to fucking work on, but you know, I watched stuff like Attack on Titan. I watched stuff like Neon Genesis Evangelion. I just finished Akira. Just kind of like noticing different sorts of ideas that are in this fucking Jap shit to kind of like write about it. But anyway, even though I was propagandized by all this Jap shit and whatever, I was kind of like, I guess it's just because it's kind of funny actually. You know, obviously I was named after MacArthur, but my parents never really told me why. I learned recently. I said this before, but my mom was like, "Oh yeah, because of the Korean War." I was like, "Wait, what?" Because like the way I read history, you know, I didn't even know in the beginning. I didn't even know that he was part of the Korean War. I thought he was part of the World War II, which he was. And I was like, "Oh, this is the reason why, because he beat down the Japs, he fucking nuked their asses." Well, he wasn't part of that decision. But then I was like, yeah, fucking go, MacArthur. Let's fucking nuke these cockroaches. That was me as like an 8 or 9 year old. I was obsessed with nuclear technology back then, like fission and fusion and plutonium and all that stuff. So I was just kind of like, wait, so you guys had your kind of thing, and you know, you get like thousands of movies about this shit. I never actually even saw Schindler's List because I was like, whatever. Like, I feel like I'm probably gonna watch it now because I'm gonna do an episode at some point. You know, you know, this is like my ambitious. Some point, I'm gonna do an episode on Spielberg and Jewish creators in Hollywood and whatever. But, um, but yeah. Anyway, I don't understand them sometimes. My old man is the same alma mater as Albert Hur's father. Wait, did Albert Hur go to? Wait, did you know Albert back in the day? Are you part of? Are you part of the? What was it? AZN masculinity or what's it? What was the other one? Why isn't this freezing? Freeze it. Freeze it. Holy shit. There we go. Albert, yeah, said his dad was really intellectual. Uh, did he study in Michigan too? Anyway, Albert did tell me that the reason he was so well read was because his father had all these books from philosophers and whatever. But then he was saying that his dad was still kind of like liberal and anti North Korea. So just goes to show that you could still be brainwashed even if you're reading all these books. You could still just be fucking brainwashed at the end. How many video essay scripts you got ready? Well, I don't have scripts ready. I only have concepts ready. But so right now, the videos I have on, obviously I'm working on the WMAF mind virus video. I still have to do the second part, the Better Call Saul, and part 3, if I ever get that far. Then I would want to do the video about Kanye. Then I would probably write the article, The Science of Goislop, for my Substack. And then I would do like the Japanese anime, kind of like analyzing Japanese anime and like its politics. Lots of ideas, but I need to just, it's the senioritis that's really getting me right now. That's what I'll blame it on. It's the senioritis. Hold on, we got a text. We got to see what this is, I think. Okay. Bruh, my hilarious chats got deleted. What hilarious chats? I put on live chat, so it shouldn't be censoring anything. AOT being based off World War II, the author made Japs look innocent. Lol. No. Oh, you're talking about... But he mentioned his father went to Yunze. Oh, okay. I thought that was interesting. That sounds about right. My old man is weird like that too. Yeah. For the longest time, I actually didn't want to make the fucking WF Mind Virus thing. Because I was like... I'm just kind of like... I'm not an idiot, right? I obviously know it doesn't make me look... It doesn't make me look like a stud, that's for sure. Doesn't make me look manly or a Chad by talking about this fucking WMF mind virus shit. The other reason was just kind of like, it's like something that will... Obviously, it's too late for someone like me, maybe. Obviously I'm in 40s, and the women my age have all been infected. And so that's just the nature of that. But obviously it's going to self-correct as China kind of China's. But there's still so many retards on the internet that I was just kind of like, fuck it. I can't. I just have a thing when people are just so clearly wrong about something and it just needs to be corrected, like Thanos, like the world needs correction. The world needs correction. Oh, it's not going to be an essay, it's going to be a video. I mean, you guys seen the original essay, right? I mean, you guys should at least read that first. Hopefully. This was the original one. But I'm going to try to make it as complete as possible. I'm going to be talking about stuff like Elliot Rodger, for example, Got to bring in all the fucking data points in this one. Oh, did you say something in the Discord? I said hollow who. The smoke nonsense makes no sense. In my Asian knees, 731 reasons. I forgot the hollow who. Wait, do Holocaust deniers say hollow who? Maybe that's why it got deleted. But I feel like that's a new thing. That could be a new thing I created. For Asians, for non-white people, we should all be like, hollow who? It's like, wait a second. Are you telling me that I should care about, like, the Crusades? When you killed a bunch of Muslim people and Jewish people, you killed a bunch of people back then too that looked like whites. So I guess I should care about the Crusades as much as I care about the Holocaust, right? Because it's just like events when a bunch of white people died. You know, is that the barometer that we're caring about this shit? I guess I should care about the 1870 Franco-Prussian war because a bunch of white people died there too. I really need to care about all these fucking revolutionary. A bunch of whites died in the Civil War, so you can't forget about that one. It's just kind of like, who cares? If you're not white, why would you ever fucking care about the Holocaust? Right? If you're not white on an emotional level, why would you ever give the Holocaust precedence over your own people's fucking genocide or whatever, which probably happened in the past 500 years if you're not white, right? If you're not fucking white, you've probably been genocided and enslaved and oppressed in some sort of fucking way in the past 500 years. So if you are fucking crying about the Holocaust and you're not white, you're just a fucking goy cuck. That's what you are. Like, non-white people who support Israel are all just fucking goy cucks. Yeah. I literally have no fucking... Like, I don't care. Like, obviously, I'm not going to be like, Hail Hitler or whatever, blah, 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 whatever. I'm not going to be like... I'm not pro-Nazi either. Just because I don't care about the Holocaust doesn't mean now that I support the Nazis, right? That's the fucking cognitive dissonance and the disconnect, or the fucking straw man that these fucking stupid pieces of shit do too. It's like, oh, you don't care about it? That means you're a Nazi. It's like, no. Doesn't mean I'm a Nazi. It means I don't care about it. It means... It's just like, as an Asian person, when you're considering politics of, if you're just considering American politics, or if you're an Asian person in the West, if you're a non-white person in the West and you're considering politics, right? You already know politics doesn't give a shit about you, right? They kind of sort of give a shit about black people, kind of, but not even, right? They kind of have to say that because the civil rights movement, they they kind of got all the black Americans to support imperialism, so you got to keep them on the tip, right? But if you're a non-white American, you're just like, politics didn't give a shit about me. So what? I got to give a shit about Jews getting killed 8,000 miles away in another country 80 years ago? And I only came here 40 years ago? And all of a sudden I got to care about that shit? So I got to care about shit about another kind of people that were killed by another country 40 years before I even got here, 8,000 miles away, and I got to care about that shit? I got to put a fucking Holocaust museum in my fucking South Korea when there isn't a fucking Unit 731 museum, when there isn't a Nanching museum, when there's only fucking comfort women statues that get groped by fucking Americans. This is the fucking this is like no. No, I don't give a fucking shit. Holla who? Holla fucking who? Yeah, it could be 6 million, it could be 5.1 million. I don't give a fuck. What about the rest of the fucking 12 million? You know, it wasn't just Jews that were killed in the Holocaust. There was a lot of Soviet people. 1.5 million gypsies were killed. Like I said, 75%. There were 2 million gypsies, and now they're 500,000 right after. You know, it wasn't like if the Soviet Union was losing, it wasn't like Hitler was going to be like, you know what? I'm going to let all these Slavs and Poles and Czechs survive too. No, Himmler and fucking, you know, Himmler et al. And Reinhard. What was his name? Was it Himmler, Heinrich Himmler, and what's that guy's name? Was it Reinhold? Reinhard Heydrich. Right, Heydrich. They were both like, we're going to kill off 80 to 90% of these Slavs. And the rest are going to be our slaves. But we need the rest of the room for our Lebensraum, right? So they were going to fucking kill everyone. It wasn't like they were like, we're just going to kill the Jews. We're just going to stop there. No, they're going to kill as many Russians, as many fucking Slavs, as many Czechs as they could to get all that Lebensraum. It's just like, fuck you. We ain't. And you know what the biggest sign? That's like the biggest sign of psychopathy in my mind. Selective empathy. Like, it would be better for someone to have no empathy than to have selective empathy. Because if you have no empathy, then it's like across the board, you don't really care about anyone. Okay, you're not. And that's, a lot of people are like that, right? It's not just like a select few are kind of like, I don't really care about anyone besides myself. There's a lot of people like that in the world, right? Like, obviously. But to be like, oh no, we need to care about this thing more than anything else, that's, in my opinion, more psychopathic. Because now you're saying other people are not worth as much to think about. Because in the first one, it's like, yeah, well, that makes sense. Because, like, it's equal opportunity, non-care about her, right? You're indifferent to everything. Maybe you probably, like, obviously, a little bit of tribalism. You probably pro your own people. But for the most part, a lot of people are like that, right? But to be like, hey, you need to care about this more than your own fucking genocide. That's the fucking audacity. Like, it was the same war. You know, Korea got fucking destroyed even harder. And not only that, we got divided. Our country got divided. They got +1 country. We got minus 0.5 country on both sides, right? You know, that's the result. We got, you know, worse Holocaust, right? Because they were enslaving Koreans. It was like the entire fucking country was pretty much Poland, right? For 35 years. It wasn't just from 1939 to 1945 years. It wasn't just 6 years. It was 35 fucking years of Poland, right? Concentration camps out the wazoo. They were making Koreans do all the fucking war building shit that was the most dangerous, obviously, in the mines and whatever. They were dying, obviously, at higher rates. They don't talk about that, but that's what was fucking happening. They were also starving the Koreans based on, you know, rationing stuff for Japan and its own fucking citizens. They were also fucking, you know, genociding or starving Vietnam as well. Millions of people died there as well. And so it's just like the audacity. Like, so first of all, Koreans and the rest of Southeast Asia, we went through our own Holocaust. B, we lost. We were minus zero point 0.5 country, while you're plus 1 country, and you are plus 1 genocide, and we are minus 1 genocide because not only are you committing a genocide in Gaza, right, with the Nakba and all that stuff, we got genocided again by America. You know, as if 35 years of Japan wasn't bad enough. 5 years later, we got a fucking, 20% of our population decreased by all this fucking more bombs than in the Pacific Theater in Japan, against Japan. Obviously, that was topped by the Vietnam War later on. But congratulations, our prize was to, after all this, our own fucking Holocaust, was to get negative 0.5 countries and our own fucking Nakba. We got our own fucking Holocaust again. So basically, shut the fuck up, Israel. You dumb fucks. You literally got plus 1 country, plus one genocide, and plus billions of dollars from Switzerland and Germany and all these other fucking places. And what did South Korea get? We got a comfort woman statue. We got that gets groped by Americans. That's what we fucking got, you dumb fucks. God. Fucking Israelites. They're not even Israelites. Israelites is the legitimate people that were there. They're not even fucking Israelites. Fucking Israelis. You mentioned Japs, my blood actually boils, but Nazis, yeah, sure, that sucks. You know what the crazier part? Crazier part is they're all crying about the nukes. They're all, even the fucking Western leftoids or Iranian, even the Iranian media people, they're like, oh no, America nuked them. It's like, fuck that. Fuck that. If there was ever a modern civilization where their citizens deserve to be nuked, that would be 2 places now. Israel would be one of them, and Japan would be the other. Imperial Japan would be the other. These are the 2 worst fucking regimes on planet fucking Earth, where not only was the regime itself terrible, but they had buy-in. They had 50 years of buy-in from these fucking innocent citizens that were fucking murked. And they want us to fucking cry about that. That's the biggest fucking insult. These fucking dumbass Zionist bitches are like, oh, well, you're not treating the Holocaust. First of all, like I said, plus 1 fucking genocide, plus 1 country. We get minus 1 genocide. We get minus 0.5 country, right? And not only fucking that, what did I say? It's like fucking... Now we gotta fucking cry about the nukes as well. That's what we gotta do. We gotta fucking cry about the fucking nukes. This is such fucking, this is why Asian people, when they see Westoid, whiteoid fucking politics or talking about geopolitics or talking about Asia, we're like, you're a bunch of fucking retards. None of you know what the fuck you're talking about, you fucking whiteoid pieces of shit. Shut the fuck up. You always fucking whiteoid all of the fucking... It all starts with, oh no, the Nazis are so bad and evil. Shut the fuck up. You don't know what evil fucking is, you dumb fucks. Anyway, not only that, China, North Korea, and South Korea got the U.S. Jap. Yeah. We get their fucking bio... Imagine if the... Imagine if the Palestinians had bubonic plague bombs and killed the IDF. They would be... Imagine if the Palestinians had Japanese bubonic plague bombs and just killed the IDF. It's so fucking insane. The amount of fucking bullshit that Koreans have kind of fucking went through against the West, and the fucking Jews or the fucking Zionists are telling us all this fucking shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. So fucking sick and tired of this bullshit. I'm here for the Doug rants. I just say what we're all thinking out loud. Koreans have been thinking this about Jewish people for the longest fucking time. Let me fucking tell you. You know, we've already been thinking this shit since the fucking 1990s. I was thinking this shit in the 1990s, in the 2000s, you know. It was so fucking annoying. Like, especially since we grew up in like a Jewish area. You know, you got all the fucking Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, blah, blah, blah. All your fucking whatever about being Jewish. Oh, Schindler's List, etc., whatever. It's like, get over it. Get over it. Apparently we had to get over it. We don't even talk about it. And, you know, we get fucking, you know, it's not even like, the sick thing is there's a lot of Jews who are just fucking weebs too. It's like, shut the fuck up. Get the fuck out of my face. Get the fuck out of my fucking face. But, yeah. I wonder if YouTube's going to cancel me for this shit. I'm too small fry. I'm too small fry for it to get canceled. Which I kind of like that. Kind of like it. All right. That's going to be it for me. Unless anyone else has anything to ask. Again, I might be busy this week. I'll kind of like let the Discord know day before if there's going to be a show or not. Try to tweet it all as well, but I would say 50-50 on there being a show on Thursday. And we'll see from there. But that is it for me, unless anyone has anything else. Just wait for a few seconds just for the lag. Oh, you're welcome, Real NYP. Oh, one last thing. I've been reading, I just saw this on Twitter. Apparently Trump on Uncle Gordon. You know, Gordon Chang. You know, I listened to this Gordon Chang. He has no idea what he's talking about. Oh, man, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. All right. I will talk to you guys later. Hopefully we will see what happens on Thursday. But